All right, how's everybody doing? Welcome back to You Don't Know Ball, episode 65. Back with y'all day after Christmas. Merry Christmas. Glad to be back with y'all. Messed up the schedule a little bit again this week, but after this, we're right back on track. There ain't no more holidays coming up. None of that. We're chilling. We're here. And more importantly, just another week where I think you can say it got even crazier. Like, it's ridiculous. I don't know how I can keep saying it's getting crazier.
I don't think anybody expected the Monday night game to be so out of hand. Baltimore really came in, and I'm not going to lie, like, I wanted Baltimore to win, but deep down I was like, I don't know. With the way the 49ers are playing, like, there's no shot that the Ravens come in here and do what they did. And they did. And I think that gives people a lot more confidence in the Ravens competing in the playoffs, because obviously Lamar hasn't won a playoff game yet, right?
No, so it's crazy.
I mean, I think this gives them, a little bit more confidence and people a little bit more belief in the Ravens. Another team that is making waves, and I don't think a lot of people expected them to be here, is the Los Angeles Rams. So we have NOLA at Los Angeles on Thursday night. Let me ask you this. Can the Rams make it back to the NFC Championship?
As of right now, I'm glad you led with this, because this is one of the main things I want to talk about. I have a few other things about the Rams I want to bring up. But so for starters, I want to remind everybody, let me get the exact number of weeks here, because you know me, I'm always bad with short math. It's the ADD in me, trying to remember these things. But so 3 weeks ago, the Rams took the Ravens to overtime, and it was a great game. And you maybe ask yourself, is this fluky? No, it's becoming very, very clear. The reality is that the Rams started off very much not on the right foot. Was it the combination of like staff going through the thing with like the arthritis, and then that the running back room still wasn't really set, and the receiving core was kind of still trying to find a way to mesh all together? I would say more than anything, yeah. And these young defenders like Kobe Turner, Byron Young, they had to get a little bit of reps in with AD. They had to really get the flow going with the D-line. Feels like right now, this Rams team can compete with anybody in the NFC. I actually have zero doubt about that. It's just a matter of showing up that given day. But I can completely see the Rams in an NFC Championship again this season.
Those, like the Rams and kind of like how the Packers are playing, I know we'll get into their game more. They only beat the Panthers by 3, but these are teams that as you get later into the season, even if they're around 500, in the hunt for the playoffs, those are teams that, let's say, a Dallas or a Philadelphia doesn't want to play early on, because they know that even though they have the better record, these guys are playing for, I don't want to say more, but almost like more with a chip on their shoulder, where they want to prove that they're meant to be here and they can compete with the best. Because honestly, with the way the 49ers played last night, I'm not saying this would ever happen in the playoffs, but, with McVay and the connection to Shanahan, I mean, I'm going to say 8 times out of 10, the 49ers are beating the Rams. But the Rams have an actual shot.
Well, and as we know, the whole thing is, and we know the running joke where Shanny has McVay's number,
right?
But except for the one time that McVay needed that, and they went onto the bull and won it. So could this be a repeat of that this year?
So that would be crazy, because in my opinion, like I said with the Rams, it's just like the way they've been playing, the way Stafford has been playing. Stafford's been playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the league these last couple weeks.
14 touchdowns and 1 interception. And I don't, it's not even just the numbers that do it justice. He is like, the throws that he's making, it's like, what got into you? Like, not that I know he can do this, but from compared to what he was doing early on in the year, he's out here, he's lighting it up. He's pulling out the sidearms again. He's pulling out the no looks again. He said, you know what? Wait a minute. I forgot who I am. Man, I'm staff. Fuck this. I'm out here dotting you guys up. I'm going to go back to that Super Bowl form. And about halfway through this year, he flipped a switch, and Stafford reminded everybody who he is.
I think also like having Kyron Williams being able to establish the run game, and then Puka obviously being that rookie, that superstar rookie, and Cooper Kupp, like they're surrounded by so many pieces. And when you have like an offensive genius like a Sean McVay, it's almost like anything is possible. Les Snead has shown that he can build a team without draft picks, which is very crucial in these Rams being able to compete. I mean, I think we know what the Rams are at this point. The fact that nobody knows what they are from a week-to-week basis, and that they can compete with the best teams. Now, that is quite the kind of similar with the Saints, where it's like you don't know what you're getting every week, but usually it's a little bit more of a bust than a boom.
And the thing is, the Saints record is very misleading. Like, and if you ask any Saints fan, the thing is, it would seem that way, like looking at them. But the reality is, in my opinion, all it's been is that the Saints are slightly better than the bad teams that they play. And then whenever they have to play a good team, you see what happens. They don't show up, and it is unmotivated garbage. That's the worst part about the Saints, is that I have always had faith in the roster. It's the leadership on the roster that does not produce, aka the coaching staff. And I'm not even gonna harp on it any longer. All I'm going to say is we went into the week with about a 50% plus chance to make the playoffs, rounded up. Well, now we're down to about a 12% chance. And if you're asking me as a Saints fan, and every Saints fan would agree, at this point, no, there's no point making the playoffs. We would get our ass kicked on national TV. And I'm much more likely that if we don't make it, at least we maybe make some kind of change. But I'm going to be honest with you, that Southern ownership, the way that they try to operate things with all this continuity and garbage down there, it doesn't even give you much hope regardless. And every Saints fan will tell you the same thing. The Saints, for whatever reason, are so gosh darn like adamant on like everything has to stay the same year to year and continuity. This is a changing era. I know that shit might have used to work, but you can look at it for organizations like the Patriots. You can look at organizations like the Steelers. Sometimes continuity is not working like it used to anymore. You got to have guys in there that are ready to go. And the reality is, if you're not doing your job, you got to get the fuck out. And I'm sorry. And it's like, if as a Saints fan, if we go another year with this coaching regime, I might have to take a year off watching. I'm joking, but I mean, it's going to be, I will be enraged.
I think the issue too is like the Saints have continually kicked the can down the road to compete with this core. And I don't think it's really turning out how they wanted. The guys that they're kicking the can down the road for are getting older as well. And let's just say, I guess my opinion is, or my question to you is, let's say the Saints lose out and they finish at, what would that, 7-10?
Yeah, we'd be 7-10.
7-10. If you have a top 10 pick, what position are you targeting to try to fix this?
Oh, well, here's my thing. Because there's another thing I want to talk about where it's not getting talked about enough at all. Like, yes, is Derek Carr not the guy in my opinion? And are we going to have to move on from Carr eventually? Like, oh, absolutely. But that's the thing is where it's not an easy rebuild for the Saints at this point because like you said, we're getting older. We're going to have to rehash things out with even with the guys we already have that are good, we're going to have to refill those positions. But if you're asking me where I'm starting, again, back to what worked with Drew. We've been getting away from it over these last few years, and it makes no sense. Let's make sure that we have an All-Pro O-line. Right now, the O-line is playing like garbage. And it's not getting, like, it's like not talked about, not at all, because the Saints are just not a very big market. I don't know, whatever the reason. Every media analyst just wants to say, like, how much Carr sucks this year. Look, I'll tell you how much Carr has sucked, too. But I'm also going to tell you that O-line is arguably worse than Carr. Nobody can do anything back to the Ron McDonald analogy. Throw Ron McDonald or Prime Tom back there. It's not going to look great because nobody's going to have time. That our O-line is terrible this year. Especially the interior is a mess. Just come on through. It's a joke. So Derek Carr has no time, and he's a terrible decision maker. I'm saying, give me a
Ronald
line.
McDonald line.
That's the
thing.
I'm gonna keep bringing it back. Like
any team that has a bad O-line, Ronald McDonald couldn't even succeed.
He
could succeed past there.
It would look the same.
It would look the same
because it's just a joke. And it really is. Where I'll be the one to start the narrative. The Saints O-line is one of the worst in the league, and it needs to be upgraded. See, the only positive thing I really have about the Saints is, I mean, really, I think it actually is the only positive note. At least Olave, Joe, and Michael Thomas, and Marquise Colston is the only Saints receivers with 1,000 plus receiving yards in their first 2 seasons.
That's like the quietest,
but like
ever.
It's like
I feel like I didn't hear about it at all.
That's the problem. Is because a lot of these yards were like garbage time. Like the Saints offense and the Saints this year have just been so lethargic. It's just, and not Olave still is a great receiver. He is. I'll tell you firsthand. He's a very talented guy. But the Saints fans still agree. He definitely still has a lot of growth to do. It's not like he's an all-pro level or anything yet. He definitely still got some growth to do. But you definitely got to love the trajectory we're seeing. Mine is Chris. And a few other bright spots this year. I got nothing to say other than the Saints literally foiled what should have been their easiest year to make the playoffs in like the last decade plus.
Well, that was a NFC matchup with both teams fighting for the playoffs. We can move on to an AFC matchup where we got both these teams scrapping to be into the hunt. We have Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. Which of these two teams, in your opinion, is more likely to make the playoffs?
And see, this is a great question because I honestly really do have to think about it. But it's, when it's a question like this, you always got to lean like, well, more importantly, I have to ask myself, who are the next 2 teams that they're playing? And I do believe that I had it written down here. So for the Bengals, you got the Chiefs and the Browns up next. Yeah, and then for the Steelers, Yeah, the Seahawks and the Ravens. I think either way, it's pretty daunting across both of them. I think what I'm going to say is, though, this is my final thought. I can very much see the Bengals losing both of those next two. I see the Steelers at least got a good shot at one of these. Some way, somehow, you may be the Ravens resting their starters. If that can work out, I don't really even know how that. I don't think
If
that's
they
even
clinch the one,
so. Because a lot of things would have to happen next week, if I'm not mistaken. Let's say that happens. Just maybe. I think that for that reason alone, and again, I'm going to lean with the coach that I have more faith in. Not that Zach Taylor hasn't shown a lot of these past few years, because he has, but I still got to go with Tomlin. Got to go with Steelers. And if Mason Rudolph can keep that hot streak going just for a little bit longer that he might have just started this past week, I feel like just knowing what the Steelers have been, what Steelers do, I don't know. It's just more of a gut feeling, but I'm going to lean Steelers. And it's like, and they got TJ. You got guys like Minka. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like I'd be wrong counting them out versus as much as we love the Jake Browning show. I don't know. I feel like this might be one of those weeks where it shows how volatile it can be.
Okay, so let's start with the Steelers then. Did you expect them to put up 34 points on the Bengals? Because not to say that the Bengals defense is like all world, but I mean, versus a Mason Rudolph led offense, I thought they would have been a little bit more competitive.
No, I think all it does, and this just reemphasizes what we already knew about the league. And for whatever reason, it gets glazed over all the time, but it's true. Like we say, it's a slow league. Even when you're someone who like they have tape on, like a Mason Rudolph, you sneak in, you fall behind the scenes for a while. Like, people kind of forget about you. And you come back out, nobody has your tendencies. And even if you newer tendencies you have, it's like, I feel like this was another prime example of like, it's kind of sometimes the advantage when you don't have any tape that season. Like was this more the result of Mason, or was this the result of not being able to prepare for what this offense was going to be? So it's like,
I don't think they could have prepared for what George Pickens did either.
Well, that's very true also. So it's like, and that more than anything, I think if you're George Pickens, you're lobbying for Mason to finish the year as the QB, because it's like you finally have a connection with one of your guys.
Well, I believe Kenny's not coming back next week.
So yeah, at this rate, that raises an interesting question. Let's say that the Steelers do go on a 2-game win streak here and make the playoffs. I mean, do you take the keys away from the guy who's running it hot with Mason and give him back to Kenny? I mean, interesting situation. I think you can see how George was feeling with Kenny. And I mean, we've been saying all year, George is one of those guys who wears the heart on the sleeve. I mean, it's pretty obvious he's not a fan of the situation with that Steelers offense anything before last week. And he said, too, I want to include his quote. He said, all I'm here to do is win. It's like, hey, all I'm going to say is after last week, if Mason can keep this up, I think he's your best shot to win.
I think that's what Mike Tomlin is looking at too, because the reality is, if he loses these next 2 games, this is his first year under 500. And while that is very impressive, and like I'm not trying to take that away, I think it just kind of sets like you're stepping into an area you've never stepped into before with Tomlin. And not to say that it'll have any like super aggressive effects, but like you see how things are in the NFL. Like when things to start not going well, it can spiral very fast. And it's like, I think Tomlin wants to avoid that as quick as he can. I mean, look at Belichick. We're talking about job security. This is someone who brought 6 Super Bowls to a team in the last 20 years. Like,
things around the Tomlin situation are starting to feel a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And you saw a thing where Ryan Clark went on the show on one of the ESPN shows. I saw a little snippet on Twitter, and he was saying, look, and this is like somebody who won Super Bowls with the man, played with the man, Pro Bowls under the man. And he was like, look, I think he should get out. My thing is, when someone who I know has that close of relationship, at least at some point with the man, makes you think like, does part of him know? Or does part of, does maybe, would it be best for, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
Does Tomlin feel that maybe another spot would be, a fresh start would be good? Obviously, none of this is going to be public information, but you get what I'm saying? I'm just raising questions. Like, just maybe, is it feeling like if they don't make the playoffs, Tomlin's out? Like, is there a feeling in the building? Is there a feeling, is he creating, it's a weird situation, like, I feel like going all around.
I don't feel like they'd fire him, and I don't think he'd quit. I feel like it'd be one of those situations where like we're mutually parting ways.
Basically what the Saints did.
Yeah, I don't think anyone like wants to like, oh, I hate it here, or like, oh, the ownership is so bad. I really think it has to do with more just like, you know what, maybe we just need, because if you think about it, when he won the Super Bowl with Ben, like that roster was kind of already there.
Oh no, that's one of the things I think, that Steelers fans always bring up. where it really pretty much not all the way, but very much it was already the baseline of the team. Everything you needed was already there. So, but I think regardless, you always got to give Mike his credit. Like Mike's proved he's a great coach, and that's the thing. Is it maybe just maybe is that to your point is the best next situation for him to find that next type of situation where things are kind of already in place, but the coach just isn't there, and you got a guy like Mike who brings the discipline, brings the fire, brings the enthusiasm, gets guys wanting to play and knowing that if they don't have their shit together, they're not going to be getting minutes. Sometimes it just maybe. But I think obviously, if you're asking me, and I've already stated, if I'm the Steelers, I'm keeping him. But it's just the point I'm raising because it's definitely going to be something that's going to be rumbling this offseason because it's already started.
So let's move over to the Bengals. A bright spot, obviously, like Jake Browning. Like everyone, I saw a lot of people shitting on Jake Browning. Yes, he had 3 interceptions, but he still threw for 335. Like this is a backup who's played how many games? Like, let's see. He's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Not bad. He's thrown for 303 times. So almost basically 50% because I'm going to take out the Cleveland game. So 6 games, 3 games he's thrown for over 300 yards. Like really can't complain from a backup with that. T. Higgins showed out, obviously. I mean, he's looking like a wide receiver 1. He's going to get paid. Well, he's going to get franchised.
It's going to be a weird situation because could he be one of those guys that says he could just say I'm not going to play on that, right? Force the hand.
He could, but I could also see like a team like the Panthers. I don't know, just offering whatever they have left for him.
No, that's what I'm saying. Absolutely, where it's like if you're T. Higgins, you're putting yourself in a great situation regardless because you know you're getting paid and you're going to be getting paid top money to potentially just be able to say I'm just chilling this year.
Yeah,
I mean, because if they were going to do that to you and you've made it clear that you want to hit the market, we know how this goes. That's a volatile situation every single time.
Yeah,
it's definitely going to be something to keep our eye on. But yeah, after that slow start, I'm glad to see T back on track.
Yeah, he had like a crazy ass play last week that I forgot who did. Someone did something similar that week, but it's just like it just shows off all that he can do. Like you were saying earlier, you know, up against the Chiefs and Browns these next 2 weeks, the likelihood of them making the playoffs or doing that, and that's how I kind of feel about both these teams. Like I feel more confident in the Steelers being able to steal a game just because of their defense in the playoffs, but both these teams are going to have a really rough time. Very low chances, 17% for the Bengals and 14% for the Steelers. We'll go into our next game, and with a team that has been struggling to really prove themselves as a Super Bowl contender, Buffalo at the Los Angeles Chargers. Are the Browns real Super Bowl contenders?
Wait, you mean the Bills?
The Bills.
I was like, wait,
real Super Bowl contenders?
It's like I'm speechless because as I've written, it's like I want them to be like, you know, I would have no, like the Bills are one of those franchises, much like the Browns. It's like, you know, lovable. I don't even want to call them lovable losers.
Oh,
but
I don't know if the Browns are lovable anymore.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
I know you're saying.
Exactly. That's hilarious. But it's like, you know what? You guys have not done anything so long. I would have no problem seeing it. But like, when you see games like this, it just doesn't feel, it feels unserious. And that's how this team has felt all year. And like we say, the reality is you got to go on a 4, especially for the Bills. You're going to have to go 4 in a row. If you'd ask me, do I have faith in the Bills to play elite 4 games in a row? Absolutely not. So I think that's the real problem. It's like, do I have faith the Bills could beat anybody on any given Sunday? Oh, absolutely. But dude, 4 in a row? No. And it's like, that's the problem.
I mean, I guess my thing is allowing 22 to the Chargers and barely winning, like,
and they looked like it just was a garbage game. Like, I talk much about like with the Saints with motivation, like how motivated does the team look? The Bills very much fit in that category to me, where it's just like one week they're like, yeah, and then the next week it's like, oh, we had to play this week. Like, I would much rather just be at home on the jet ski. It's like no interest. Like, that's how the Bills feel like every other week. It's just a disinterested team, and it's just the worst thing to be watching when it's a team full of talent.
I think also something is like Stephon Diggs honestly hasn't been like, whether it's him, whether it's the play calling, whatever it is, he has not really had that great of games. I mean, like in his last 5 games, the highest he's had is 74 yards, and he's only had 1 touchdown in that span. Highest is 6 catches, 3 with 4 and 1 with 5. Gabe Davis has really come on as of late.
That's the thing I want to talk about with Gabe. So first thing was Stephon. So you're telling me that if you cause a bunch of internal issues and make guys' emotions like go up and down like a roller coaster, it just might have an effect on the way that everyone around you plays. Oh, totally shocked.
I honestly really wonder if Diggs had like any role in like them firing their offensive coordinator.
That's what it's. I never even thought about it till you just said it.
Neither
but
did
it's
I.
very interesting where it's like you have to ask yourself with Stephon, like, are part of the reasons that things are the way they are with him, John, like, are part of this maybe because you make a scene like multiple times a year? I'm just gonna raise the question. But then over to Gabe Davis. So there's not anyone in football like Gabe Davis. Listen to this. Okay, over the last 7 weeks, you're not gonna believe this, but 4 games with 0 catches and 0 receptions. And over those games, he was only targeted 5 total times. But then he has 2 games in that span of 100 plus yards. Is there anyone in football like Gabe Davis? How and why does that happen?
I think he's just like the biggest. I literally lost fantasy playoffs this week because I did not play Gabe Davis. And it's like, he's just someone I never feel comfortable actually playing.
Never.
I just don't know like what he's supposed to do. Like there's multiple weeks where there's 4 weeks this year where he'll have 0 yards. No,
over the last 7 where he has 4 over the last 7 with 0 catches, 0 receptions. And even then, like I said, like the targets, 5 targets over 4 games where your health shut out. I mean, it's like,
then he'll have 2 games where he has 12 targets and 9 catches. And it's like, what the fuck? Like,
that's what I'm saying. It makes 0 sense because even if you're getting no separation, you don't go from getting no separation to getting separated 12 times. Like something doesn't make sense about the Bills offense. And I'm sorry, some way, somehow to me, in a weird way, it has to come back to the Diggs thing. Because
you think, okay.
But like, because the Bills offense didn't used to be like this. Did it? I mean, I feel like it used to have a cohesion. Like Stephon was number 1, Gabe was number 2 behind him. And yes, he would have frustrating days, but it was never like this.
Also,
and now it's like Stephon and Gabe are both frustrating and everyone else is kind of eating outside of them, but it still is a weird thing. And then James Cook's evolution has definitely really, really helped the Bills, but
it's helped, but doesn't it feel like kind of weird?
The whole offense has it doesn't really have much of a rhythm. And the thing is where, especially if Josh isn't on superhero mode, then it really doesn't feel like it has much of a rhythm.
Right.
Like that's where, again, back to the Ken Dorsey thing. If you're a Bills fan, it's like, oh yeah, firing Ken Dorsey, that was definitely what it goes back to. But in reality, the offense was good before. It was good before Dorsey fired, good after. I mean, the Bills just are a weird situation.
Yeah, I just, there's one of those teams that, like I said, like kind of like a Rams where they can beat anybody, but I almost have less confidence in them. But I think obviously their ceiling is higher than a team like the Rams. Going over to the other side, the Chargers. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't even really know what to say.
No, literally all I had for the Chargers was like, yeah, we knew what the Chargers were. Like the season's over. I guess it must be nice for them to be able to see that without Staley, you actually did still go. Believe it or not, you still had a competitive roster. You know, it was the Staley effect holding it back. It's got to at least make you feel good. You're like, hold on, we got some fighters on their roster. I got some guys that are ready to play ball. It's just that Staley effect was holding them back. Like, so that's got to feel good.
So here's something that kind of scary for them. The Chargers are negative, I believe. I heard 47. I'm seeing 34 right now. Negative $34 million over the cap next year.
You know, it's a great thing you brought up
and it's very real that Joey Bosa and Mike Williams may not be on the team next year.
You know what I was going to ask? Let's just lead right into it. What's the next step for the Chargers this offseason besides the new staff?
I mean,
because there are so many different ways you can go with this.
They have, let me see. They have on salary, on their cap number. Let me see. I'm trying to see for 24. Okay. So Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Khalil Mack, and Joey Bosa all are making $32 million or more next year.
Oh. See, and that's crazy where it's like saying it out loud sounds ridiculous, but very realistically is cutting Khalil Mack like.
Would you rather cut Mack or Bosa?
And that's where it's like we seen what Mack's doing this year, but we always go back to the whole thing of with windows. Like, is he fitting your Super Bowl window? realistically, is Khalil the type of guy who just maybe could go like to like Justin Houston when he's like 38, 39, still be putting up like 10 sacks?
But
maybe, but like you're not going to bank on it if you're a GM.
I think your argument could be though is like with the right coach, this roster is not super far away. So it's like, what do you do? Because originally I was thinking like, okay, let's try to get what we can from these guys. For these guys, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Mike Williams, maybe from like contenders. Like even if it's a mix of like 2nd to 5th round picks, it's something. But at the same time, it's like Keenan Allen has how many years left? And then once that happens, it's kind of like, so he's under contract until 2024. So he's got one more year. Your number one receiver is Josh Palmer or Quentin Johnston at that point, if you get rid of Mike Williams. So it's just, I feel like it's a very confusing path to navigate for Chargers fans at this point.
I would be on the side of like, where it's almost kind of like, it almost feels like it's like the Chargers are in a weird alternate reality version of the Saints where they have the QB, but then a lot of other things, it's like they still are missing, where it's like, but by the time that you try to push this roster to its max, it's almost like it's better to just scrap down now, bite the bullet now and reload, especially to your point with that receiving core. Like, what if you're going to give Keenan another contract after this one? Like, is it worth it with how much that, and yes, I know this year's been a little bit of an anomaly. He's out there much more, but where it's like, we know how Keenan's health is. And then we know how Mike's health is. That was another thing I was going to say. It's like, is Mike's trade value at this point with how much he's out there? He's very talented, but like teams are probably not going to be willing to shell out more than like
he'd be
third or a fourth.
He'd be a good like addition to the Chiefs receiver room. Just a reliable guy.
It's literally what I was just thinking of. The only team I could even think of that would even be willing to shell out like a third or a fourth, because it's a thing. It's just volatile. Like you're thinking at that point, I could get me a guy who's at least going to play 16, 17 a year. Where with Mike, you're counting on like, for me, it's like 10, 11. I mean, I'm counting on that. And if you can get more of that, it's amazing. Like, it's unfortunate to say. But so, yeah, I mean, the Chargers are definitely in, they're in Bleakville, along with Saints fans.
Bleaktown.
Yeah, they're in Bleaktown.
Let's move over to a shocker. I had zero guess that this is how this game would play out. We have Indiana. I stay saying Indiana. Indianapolis at Atlanta. What do you think the Falcons should do at quarterback after this year?
It's a very interesting question, but I feel like I'm probably leaning like something in the draft, because this is it's a weird year where you might be able to really get a guy you have a lot of faith in long term towards the back end of the first round. Okay. So I feel like, and at that, Falcons probably didn't beat the back end, but you get what I'm saying, mid to back end, they could somehow squeak out the playoffs here, that it would be back end, but if not middle, I mean, there's probably going to be a couple good QBs sitting right there, right around that time. I feel like that if you're the Falcons, the draft avenue is probably the way to go. But then on the same side of things, we talk about like the bowl windows, and it's like with the Falcons bowl window, it's like, do you really have time to let someone develop for like 3 or 4 years with this roster right now? It's a question you're going to have to ask yourself if you're Arthur Blank.
So you could draft a QB, which I would feel like if you want like a Jaden Daniels, you're going to have to go move up. I feel like if you're where you're at and you want to take a quarterback first round, you could possibly trade back and get assets, because like I've seen a lot of mocks where Jaden Daniels is sneaking into the top 10, where he's going to be that QB3. And that happens every draft season. QBs sneak up, but then in reality, they might not. I mean, we saw Will Levis go in the second. So you could draft a QB. You could trade for a guy possibly like a Justin Fields. Or another suggestion that I saw was going to get Ryan Tannehill. Arthur Smith was the reason his career was revived. And you can look at the Falcons, and I'm not saying the Falcons are a Ryan Tannehill away from competing. They might not even make the playoffs. But you can make the argument that with just decent quarterback play, this team can win your division.
Without a doubt. That's why we said all year from the beginning of the year. That's why if you're a Falcons fan, you're so disappointed. Falcons and Saints were pretty much shaking hands on that feeling of like, okay, we finally have a good roster. Like, and our division sucks. Like, There's no excuse not to go do something this year. It's the same thing. Where, yeah, and I think my thing with that though is I agree that it would definitely be an upgrade over now. I just feel like that doesn't feel like super serious. Like, it feels more like back to the whole thing of moral victories. It's like, it's just an upgrade over now.
Right.
But it's like, are we going to Lombardi land with him? Probably not.
It's just something you could sell to your fan base is like, look, we can really do this now.
Like, if anything, I'll say as a Saints fan, Go get yourself Tannehill, because I'd be comfortable then knowing that the Falcons aren't going to Lombardi land.
That's how it felt with me when the Bears almost like when they got Andy Dalton. And I was just like, okay, well, so like this is it.
Yeah, no, like yeah, I know the Andy Dalton feeling too. So yeah, it'd be a prime example. It's just enough to compete in there and maybe compete to the playoffs, but back to Lombardi land. If you're not giving me a ticket to Lombardi land, I do not want you.
So Kyle Pitts has been stepping up, 2 touchdowns the last 3 weeks. Do you think he's finally going to be coming back? We've been waiting on this since his rookie year.
I'll keep saying it. It's on Art Smith. If Art keeps dialing up for this man, I have no doubt about it. If we want to keep using him as a decoy, Art, we're going to keep getting decoy results. Let Kyle leak out. Keep running more of these boots. Let him sneak over and up. We need it. We need at least one of those a game. Fuck that. I need at least 5 of those a game. That keep dialing up the boots. Keep getting K hits long, especially on condensed type of formations where if you're playing like a 4-3, a 3-4, and you got linebackers on the field, man, Art, get Kyle deep, bro. Get him deep. There's nobody covering him that's not a tall, big box safety at this point. And like I've said, there's a very few guys in the league kind of that are in that mold that can even really cover Kyle Pitts. Like, he's the most malpractice player in the whole league, and I'll keep saying it.
Do you think that the Falcons should have just stuck with Heineke and they would have been better off?
So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of my notes that I had, let's be honest. Would you say the biggest fault of this season? That's why you would say Art Smith is on the hot seat, is that he put more faith in Desmond Ridder than Taylor Heineke? Because again, we knew what Taylor is. Like, is Taylor taking you to Lombardi land? No. But with what they were this year and what we knew that Desmond was and what we know Taylor is, at least Taylor gives you the fun, and it gave you I feel like a pretty fair shot to make the playoffs. And if it started from start to finish, it's like now
on a late game or just when you have a game in control, I would much rather trust Heineke, just because, like, yes, he's a little bit more of a gunslinger, I would say, than Desmond Ridder, but when Ridder makes those mistakes, it's almost just like you grab your head, you're like, oh, what are you doing? Like, when Heineke fucks up, it's like, okay, well, it's like a Jameis interception where it's like, at least you were going deep with it.
It makes you think. When I watch Desmond, I think to myself, it's the only thought that goes through my head, he's thinking too much. That's the worst thing when the worst trait to have out there, unfortunately, is like you're doing less doing, more thinking. His mistakes feel like it's because he's thinking too much. Not enough doing, more thinking. Reverse that, and Desmond Ridder might look like a good player, but he's just out there thinking too much.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. The Falcons, they have a 12% chance now to make the playoffs. They are currently 7-8. Looking at their division, you have them in front of the 7-8 Saints and then behind the 8-7 Buccaneers. So obviously there is a lot of fluctuation that can happen in the NFC South, but the Falcons making the playoffs just does not seem very likely. Obviously this offseason can be big for them depending on if they keep Art Smith or not. Obviously there were some comments made that he might be around regardless of the result of the season, but as of late, it feels like that's changed. And I think a reason that it's been kept around, that he has been kept around, is obviously, like, I think that defense is a lot of the reason they're competing. And if the defense wasn't as good as it was, and Art Smith is calling the offense, I don't think he's here.
No, not at all. This last note I really want to touch on was that, yeah, we had to give him a shout out. Zach Harrison, rookie last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or last 2 weeks, he's had 3 sacks. He's had 3 all season. Breakout incoming.
The Falcons defense has really been like a very not talked about high point for them. Like, no one discusses the Falcons defense. It's the only reason they're staying in games.
Oh, it is. And Jesse Bates is the MVP of that defense. I said MVP season incoming. All pro season incoming. Not MVP yet, Jesse. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but we definitely get it all pro this year. And you got to love it if you're a Falcons fan.
Moving over to the other side, we have the Colts, who are 55% chance right now to make the playoffs. They have the Raiders and Texans up next. But honestly, I'm very frustrated with the Colts because this just felt like a game that they should have had in the bag easily.
And for my narrative, if they won this one, I feel like this might have been the one where you really, especially with the other win after this week, you could have really locked up that Shane Steichen Coach of the Year. Now I'm like it's shaky on that. And again, 55%. I don't know. It just that feels higher than it should be too, with how everything around the AFC is going right now. I get it's because you get the Raiders and Texans up next, but it's just this was and Colts fans would agree. This was one of the most disappointing games all year for any team, especially when you had a chance to basically not lock up, but almost lock up playoff spot. Yeah, this against the Ritter Falcons. It's all I can. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. Jonathan Taylor has been hot recently. 4 touchdowns the last 3 weeks, 5 all season. But the offense, the passing game, just wasn't existent without Pittman.
If anything, Michael Pittman is making his case for MVP after this game. And I'm saying it as part jokingly, but also, I mean, like, let's be serious for a sec. This man is the most valuable player of this offense. To this
Michael
offense,
Pittman?
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
If Michael Pittman's not out here, it's a completely different
Not
offense.
to say he's better than JT, but it's like without like their top receiver, that I mean, like Kyle Granson and Will Mallory were their 2 leading receivers. That just can't it can't happen, especially when you're playing with your backup quarterback.
Pittman takes so much attention away from everyone else that it's a good cohesive unit. But then when he's not out there, you see what happens. Where you got to go to the big boys a little more often. No one else getting separation. Not a good recipe.
Another bird team. We got the Falcons to the Seahawks. We have Seattle at Tennessee. Do you believe that the Seahawks could make it past the first round if they make the playoffs?
Realistically, especially this year, and just as of right now, I don't believe so, because it's still the same identity that they've been all year. Like the young defense, that when they're firing on all cylinders, they're really firing on all cylinders. And it's same with the offense isn't young, but with the offense, same kind of vibe where when they're firing on all cylinders, like, yeah, they're firing. But it's like, I don't think that they're going to be able to fire hotter than the team that they're going to face, whoever it is in the first week of the NFC playoffs. And that's the thing too. It's like, because Seahawks have had good games against good opponents this year. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. And don't get me wrong, it's possible.
Right now, the Seahawks would play the Lions, which would actually be a great matchup.
Oh, but that would be exactly a fun little rematch. But again, especially with what happened the first time, I feel like the Lions would be a little bit,
Hopefully.
The Lions would be ready for revenge. No matter who they
faced. That would
faced.
be such a Lions thing, though, to do.
Become
the 2 seed and lose to the 7th?
Certainly would be. So if you get the Lions, that'd be best case scenario. I'm just, from an objective standpoint, no, I don't believe it. But, like, it could happen. It certainly could happen.
Okay. So, 69% chance to make the playoffs now. JSN has been, I think we're finally seeing that little rookie jump from him. The Seahawks defense has been heating up. The Seahawks have, here's my thing. This is why I can never believe in the Seahawks. It just feels like every game with them is tight.
No, what you're saying is they feel like last year's Viking.
Yeah.
Where no matter what,
they do.
Way too
They
volatile.
do a lot.
Like win or lose, it's like you don't believe in them to really go on a run.
Geno Smith is like playing all right. I don't think he's playing as good as he was last year.
No.
And it's like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of questions still surrounding the Seahawks because like they made the playoffs last year. So my thing is like, if they don't, let's say they miss the playoffs this year, like what changes for Seattle? And that's the thing is like, I feel like it's a hard answer. I don't really know what you change. I mean, obviously QB, but
that's the, like, what feels like what would have been the best case scenario is it's really like the Lions did what the Seahawks needed to do. Like taking a guy like Hendon, being like, look, we don't know when it's going to happen, if it's even going to happen on this team, but I'm getting a guy where I'm really confident in him if I have to throw him in here or when I got to throw him in here. Why have the Seahawks not done that?
Yeah, why did they? Because I don't believe they took a quarterback last year. Like, not even in the late rounds.
I don't believe, and again, if they did, it was very late or undrafted free agent. I don't believe they did at all. I cannot for the life of me remember that. So again, yeah, to that point, why do the Seahawks not seem to have like a contingency plan for what's going to happen post Geno? It's like they've literally banked all the money on Geno bringing home the Lombardi. Personally, not understanding that.
Yeah, they didn't. But also, like, kind of to go back at that, Dobbs, if you look at the Seahawks, like when they traded Russ, right? They have all these first round picks and they have whatever, all these picks from the Broncos. My thing is, you were at pick 5 last year. That would have been the perfect opportunity. And my thing is, if you're constantly going to be a 500 team, you're not going to get a chance at the top guys. But also, like, your starting quarterback is 33 years old. He's maybe a year younger or a year or two younger than Russell Wilson. If he doesn't work out, what is your plan? Drew Lock?
And that's the thing is, and I want to be clear, like, did they take like an all-pro type, a future all-pro type of guy at that fifth slot? Like, for sure they did. But it's like, realistically, and we always say, like, it's like, you're going to have to pay the man in 4 years. And if you don't get the QB situation figured out by the time you got to pay him and all these other guys, because I talk about a guy like here, unsung hero, Boye Mafe, got to pay him in 3 seasons, already up to 9 sacks this year. Like, before you know it, the money starts to get tight. And before you know it, it's like who's in, who's out. And the last thing you want to be doing when you're figuring out who's in and who's out is figuring out who's the guy behind center. It's just, personally, and I've said it since the beginning of the tenure last year. Gino's fun, but it's not going to work without some type of plan behind it. And it's like, now it's starting to fall into like, it's getting into bleak territory because
the reason you trade Russ is because, one, it's not working out, but it is because you're thinking he's older at the end of his career. If you think Geno Smith, who's been a career backup, is going to get you further than Russ would, not to say Geno wasn't running the offense better last year. He definitely was. But it just kind of feels like the plan like is kind of half-baked right now.
It almost feels like there really was not much of a plan.
Now,
and they kind of just roll with the punches.
Now, if they can upgrade the O-line, it's definitely an ideal situation for a young rookie quarterback to come here if they get better protection. But at the same time, like I said, like unless you're going to use capital to move up and get a guy, like I feel like Jaden Daniels would do pretty well in Seattle. Like the supportive coaching staff, he's got some weapons, he can run around, like that would be a good thing. But if you don't use that capital to go get that guy, I don't know if you're going to find the right person. Like what are you going to take, a Michael Penix Jr.?
Yeah, like I feel like last year, the best case scenario. But again, when they have a guy like Spoon playing how he is now, he sounds like a jackass no matter what.
Yeah.
But for the longest term, I'm just saying, like, he took that pick last year, moved down to the late first round. Hey, you can move up this year. Let me get that late first this year. Let me get your first next year or second next year. Something like that. A couple seconds. You know what I mean? I give myself a plan for where I'm going to take my QB.
They're like a second round QB type team. I feel like
very well could be. Again, to the point of that, the fact the roster's already pretty well built, but it's like, let's get the guy back there sooner than later, even if he's just learning behind like in a Jordan Love role. There's nothing wrong with that. As we've seen, as the Packers have fucking showed, there's nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with just letting him chill. But at least just do it. I don't know why the Seahawks and not more teams approach it like that. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Going over to the other side, I mean, this game pretty much sealed. I mean, they were competitive, but the Titans, I think this kind of I feel like this puts the nail in the coffin of like what the future is for the Titans. Like there is no, in my opinion, like hope of rebuilding like what this team was. This is the rebuild time.
And it raises a lot of interesting questions. Like we said, it raises questions about some like Vrabel around what you do. Because we know Levis is the guy. But then it's the point of how are you going to keep Levis's confidence up?
Well, this guy for now.
Right. This receiving core is a mess. The offensive line, it's a mess. I thought the highlight of the team, and I can't even say it's King Henry anymore because King's getting old. It's like, realistically, I don't know. Will Levis, and that it's
Derrick Henry. I also believe is a free agent after this year. So,
if you're King Henry, are you re-signing with the Titans? I
wouldn't. I mean,
I know he loves it there. I'm sure I get it's different in his eyes.
He's one of those running backs where it's like, you know how like Josh Jacobs and Saquon were getting a deal done? Like, my thing is, I don't think teams would flinch at the chance to sign Henry. Like, they're not going to be, well, he's getting older. Like, he is such a legend that it's like the right championship team will pay him.
No, for sure. And even if you just get him in the room for situations, like, are you kidding? Like, it's like we get, and the off
Imagine
chance,
him on the Ravens.
I say in the off chance, all we got to do is punch it into the end zone in overtime to win the Super Bowl. So I'm just making hypotheticals. But you get what I'm saying. You want King Henry on that roster. There's no doubt about it.
No.
So I think that he has a home no matter what. It's just a matter of finding it. And even if it's Tennessee again, but I would say I would lean that we will probably see King Henry in a new uniform.
That would be very weird to see.
That would be very weird.
Obviously, I mean, you like what you see from Tajay Spears at times. Chig, you like what you see, but
I wish it was more consistent with Chig.
Yeah, overall, I think you just have to kind of scrap this team and start from the start. I mean, you got Skronsky, you got Levis,
and
Treylon
Tajay. And I will
Burks.
say, Tajay, I do have a lot of faith in the long term. He's just not getting the touches this year. But if you're a Titans fan, you should be excited about Tajay.
Yeah, no, great pickup in the draft from Tulane, right?
Yes, sir. The roll wave over there.
All right. We're going to move into a NFC North matchup. Detroit at Minnesota. What is your feeling on how far the Detroit Lions can go this year?
It hurts me to give an honest answer on this because I don't want it to be this way.
Oh, no.
But they still have the hot Lions in them. So don't get it twisted. I hope they prove me wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I think they could prove me wrong. But as of right now, they're giving me terrible one and done potential, two and done at most vibes. I hate, just like, it pains me to say this. You know me and my Lions narratives and how they've been. But like right now, they're not, especially, it's much more the defense. We went from like, where I think this is what I would say. For a while, it was kind of like the offense is going to play good most weeks. But then when the offense didn't play good, it was fine because the defense was going to like really keep the foot on the neck of the other team. But now it just, these past 4 or 5 weeks do not feel like that at all. It feels like if the offense doesn't play amazing, they're screwed. And that's not a recipe to do anything in the playoffs, especially when the offense is still not like firing on all cylinders.
I mean, regardless of Nick Mullins throwing 4 interceptions, you still allowed him to throw for 411 yards. Like, this is a career backup. And the Vikings also only rushed for 17 yards. And somehow they only lost by 6 points.
That's like this. The Lions are unfortunately slipping in, as we said last week, they're slipping into unserious territory quick.
So what do you think they need to do to correct that? Or do you think there isn't correcting that? Like, you think the defense is just not what it's supposed to be competing?
I think more than anything, the pass rush has got to wake back up. I think like Aiden Hutchinson started the year really hot. He's still playing, had been having a good season, but I think Hutch has got to get going again. Like, I think you got to get Hutch really, really going again. I think we want to see more from that interior. There's not one easy answer. I think just continue to keep getting healthy, get everyone back, but the pass rush has got to come alive for the playoffs because the pass rush I think has been really, really lacking.
I think one of the frustrating things too is like all the good players for the Lions are playing well. It's just like the other players you need to step up just aren't. Like Monty, Gibbs, Goff, Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams even stepping up. Laporta didn't have the greatest game, but you know what you can get from him. But it's just like outside of that on the defense, like Kirby Joseph had 2 interceptions. But it's like outside of Aiden Hutchinson, but I mean Jack Campbell, all right. But
even I was the only player that even deserved a shout out this week, but like you said, besides Kirby, was, and I had to give a shout out to Brian, and I might butcher his name here a little bit. I'm sorry. It's a name I'm getting used to. New guy in the scene here, but Iferu Malfuanu.
That sounded close enough.
But that sounded close enough. Look, playing really good ball after stepping into that starter role over the past 3 weeks. 2 sacks and an interception this past week. Young guy. If you're a Lions fan, he's definitely one of those guys that's got to be exciting for you. But we want more than exciting right now. We want faith. You want faith in this unit. And I feel like right now, I don't know if you have much faith in this unit. You might have some excitement about some guys, but do you have faith? And that's where it's weird. Is if for me, I'm just saying for me personally, I'm losing the faith. Not that they're screwed. From where we stood with them a few weeks ago, not even a few, where we stood with them 6-7 weeks ago and where we stand now, it's taking a pretty steep. I
feel like the Lions in this offseason need to heavily address the defense. And then obviously I would say depth for O-line, but the defense, you have to be drafting defense over and over and over again because it's like this team window is relatively young. But if you don't fix the defense, it's just going to be one of those teams that has to always be in a shootout.
More pass rushers, more corners. Lions, you know what you need to do.
All right, let's go to the Vikings. Justin Jefferson, 3rd and 27. What the fuck? You saw that play?
Yeah, no, he's insane. Like it's to the point where I just laughed at the TV. Like it's just like, like this dude is just insane. It is even funnier when you're an LSU fan, you know, as I was. Like it's like where with like I always go back to like with him and Jamar. I always knew both of them were going to be insane, but I didn't think that Jay Jettas was ever going to be the guy that was like the more spectacular play kind of guy over Jamar. It's just so funny to see. The amazing development of Jettas. It's just really been a treat. I mean, just out here just making insane plays. Just main thing we had on that, I think we could agree on. It's just great to not see injuries affecting the play.
Yeah. I mean, I think also with the Vikings, right now they are at the A seed, so they're not in the playoffs, and they have a 30% chance to make it. I think also, like, obviously they've had injuries this year. They've been without Jay Jettas, Kirk Cousins popped his Achilles, all that. To still be, what are they right now? To still be 7-8 is pretty impressive.
That was my last notice. Like, despite the disappointing season, you feel like there's got to be a lot to hang your hat on, right?
Yeah.
Like, you got Kevin O'Connell, you got you like, even if Kirk, whatever the situation is with Kirk, you see that KOC can make QBs look good, even for a short time if they're not really going to be good long term. KOC is a QB whisperer, right? So you got that in the building. You got one of the best receiving duos over the next few years, like we already were raving about last week. You got Hawkinson. You got to feel good about the O-line. You got some work to do on the defense. But even with that, like, hey, Danielle Hunter had a career year. Like, Wandham on that D-line is making some noise. Like, you got guys making noise. You got guys developing. There's a lot you could hang your hat on if you're a Vikings fan. I don't think as we agree. Oh, and Mekhi Blackman out of nowhere out of this year, third round, one of the better corners in the league already. Like, if you're a Vikings fan, you got plenty to hang your hat on.
So if you are the Vikings GM and you're your first round pick, what position are you targeting?
Again, like the ideal guy for the Vikings, but he's like the ideal guy for a lot of teams right now, it feels like. But Jaden Daniels, I mean, it's like, if you got him on this roster, I mean, I could see them going to win 9-10 games easily next year, and it's just uphill from there.
See,
so, like,
I'm under the belief that they should re-sign Kirk for a year, and then whoever they draft for a quarterback just needs to sit for 1 year.
That would be even better.
Yeah,
that's just taking my plan and giving it steroids.
Right. I think they could see a lot of success from that.
No, keep KOC in the building. The Vikings fans, you guys will keep seeing success.
Quarterback uncertainty in Minnesota, and there's also quarterback uncertainty in Washington. We have Washington at the New York Jets. Will the Commanders move on from Sam Howell? They are currently the number 3 pick in the draft.
It's such a weird and sudden turn. It's like I'm so caught off guard saying this because if you took audio from me a few weeks ago, it sounded ridiculous right now.
I don't think anyone saw this coming the way it did.
No, this is truly, in my opinion. I mean, really, this is unprecedented to me. I never saw a guy who was basically in his rookie year go from leading the league in passing yards and being up there in touchdowns. You know, everyone's raving about him. You got a guy. And then he just looks like a 5th string QB like 3 weeks in a row. And yes, I said 5th string. I know shit doesn't, you get my point. He's playing like a QB I have no words. I mean, I've never seen, oh my God, yes, to like, what? And like, to compare him to like a receiver arc, maybe in a sense, almost like, well, kind of like what we saw in Christian Watson, but at least with Watson, there's like, we knew the injuries happened. It was more like you can attribute it to that. Like with Sam Howell, it's like, man, it's angering me how quickly he went from like, that's the guy, to like, oh man, this guy can't play. But that's why I wanted to say my note is, it's like, I wanted to ask you, do you think that this is just simply the result of him being terrified out there behind that atrocious O-line?
See, kind of. I also think it has to do with the fact of like, I don't want to say the line because honestly, he has a similar issue to Justin Fields where he tries to play hero ball. Like he just holds on to the ball for too long. And while I don't know what it is, honestly. Like, is it Bieniemy? Is it him? Because he was putting up like crazy numbers, and we've seen guys put up like crazy numbers, but he was doing it like game after game after game, and like he was the NFL passing leader for a little bit. It was
even for a couple weeks. Like that's what I'm saying. Where this is, I mean, I'm gonna keep using the word. To me personally, it is unprecedented, the fall off. And I think to the point where it's like he was doing it with minimal tools around him. But then now it makes no sense because then when he's folding, then Jacoby Brissett's coming in almost saving the day. Like what is happening?
I would like to see the Commanders win another game because my thing is like, why even put Brissett in there? Like, you know what you're getting with him. And like, if you're trying to lose and get a new quarterback, like it just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand the move. Like, I understand he's playing bad, and like maybe he's a quarterback where they got enough tape on him and they know how to stop him, and he just, I mean, if you remember, he was supposed to be a first round pick and then he fell to the 5th the next year. So it's like maybe what everyone was seeing is like, oh, this is his downfall. Like, this is his issue.
Well, again, we've known he's undersized. He's a lot of things that limit him, but he was just, for so long he was maximizing it. It has been very weird. And that's the thing, is even when I watch it on tape, I cannot pinpoint exactly what the issue is. The issue is just, the main thing is, regardless though, is that the O-line has always been bad, continues to be bad. I think if I had to lean towards one thing, it has to be just the confidence is losing every single week, and just how much time he's going to have. But it's just this cataclysmic drop off. It's just, regardless, there's no way you can slice it up evenly. It makes no sense no matter what.
I see you have a note in here about Chris Rodriguez. Do you think that's something that people who are B-Rob fans should be concerned about?
I don't think if you're a B-Rob fan, you should be concerned about it. If you're an Antonio Gibson holder or anything along those lines, I think you should be concerned about it then. Because I think what you're looking at is you're probably looking at the 1-2 punch next year for the Commanders being B-Rob and C-Rod. B-Rob, C-Rod?
B-Rob, C-Rod.
Hey, we stay good up the nicknames on this show. So I think we're going to roll with that one for a while here. C-Rod out the backfield. But yeah, see, he's the bright spot for the Commanders for the past 5 weeks. At least ever since Sam Howell fell off, you got Chris Rodriguez Jr. coming in, bringing somewhat of a smile to your guys' face.
Yeah, he's I like watching him run. He's real. There's a lot of energy in his runs.
There is. And then also the last thing too about the Commanders real quick is, hey, look, Khaliki Hudson, past 2 weeks stepping in as a starter, 28 combined tackles. That's definitely another bright spot. Flying around there.
Let's see if the trend continues. Did the Commanders have a sack this game?
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness. How could I forget? No, yeah. Pull that up.
We just have to discuss this before we move on to the Jets.
No, because that has been far and away though. It's like you can't attribute it to this.
Sacks.
You can't really attribute it to Sam Howell. But all I'm gonna say is, ever since they got their pass rushers out the building, it had a cosmic effect on everything. Because that was the day Sam Howell started to fall off. It makes. The Commanders are lacking sense in every direction.
If the Commanders can't get off the field, I mean, like, the Jets put up 30 points.
No, I'm telling you, I'm telling you, bro, I have never seen a team like the Commanders in my life where there was substance on offense. There was, and then just like, they're not the same team at all.
No,
nothing about them.
Going on to the Jets,
they're a weird team.
2 of the last 3 weeks, 30 plus points for the offense.
Isn't that hilarious?
Breece Hall is sometimes non-existent, and then sometimes he reminds you why he was taken in the first round, and it's just like, why are you winning if you're the Jets right now? Why?
I'll give you the answer, because Saleh and them are feeling the heat. But again, I don't know if you saw the reports that Woody Johnson then came out this week, or I'm sure they were, but then he came out this week and reaffirmed it that, hey, look, they're good. They're keeping their jobs. Everything's fine. But everyone says, what does that really mean? It means Hayrod came in the building and said, hey,
these are my guys. Yeah.
Those are the guys.
I guess my thing though is like, you're playing yourself out of elite tackle territory.
No, I mean, but again, I get it from the perspective of like a guy like Saleh and them. He's not going to take his foot off them. He's going to make sure they're out there ready to go every single week.
Yeah.
But I agree. Just like the Jets can look at from a few years ago, like that game against the Rams.
Oh my.
I mean, every year the Jets almost juice themselves at this point. And if you're
that's kind of how it feels with New England.
You've got to. I mean, if you're a Jets fan, you got to be tired of that, right? It's like, if we're gonna suck, just suck. Like, what is with this? I mean, I'm getting mad about it. I get it, with no affiliation to these fuckers, and it's making me mad. And I didn't even think about it till just now. But if I was watching the Jets, I would be so livid with what's transpiring. You're like, wait, we could have been this team, but we weren't when it mattered, and now you guys want to be this team? Yay, round of applause.
I mean, there's a realistic chance that, I mean, the Week 18 game, New England and New York, like, at that point, you're just playing for draft stock. And it's like, who wants a low? And like, that's a game to me New England wins and completely removes themselves from the quarterback conversation.
You can just see Belichick like smirking himself on the sideline, and then he gets in the car and he's like, wait a minute. Fuck. He's like,
it's going to be a shit show.
That wasn't it.
It's going to be a shit show. Well, the Jets, wow, what a turn of events for what, like, I think everybody thought this season was going to be for them.
How about this? We'll say this was the game of two teams that have made no sense this year. The nonsense bowl.
The nonsense bowl. Well, the next game, I got to think of what a name for this bowl would be. Probably the fucking heart attack bowl
The
for
Packers
Bears
40
fans.
Chess Bowl.
Yeah, what the fuck? So the Packers, in my opinion, did themselves a disservice in this game. So let's go to Green Bay at Carolina. Should we expect more games like this from Bryce Young, or do you think this was a fluke?
Well, I know I've been saying, and I'll keep saying, I firmly believe that Bryce is in territory to be like a Tua 2.0, or like it literally like pin it down, like same situation. Like came in the league, the coach wasn't it, the relationship with the ownership, everything was a mess, right? But you got to get it hashed out with a new coach and get the right offensive coordinator, right QB coach around him. I have no doubt that this was what Bryce could look like. Now you just got to see it consistently, right? But because he's a killer in that pocket. Like if you give Bryce a pocket, killer. It's just the issue is that he has barely had any pockets all year with how bad this O-line is. So, yeah, again, load up on the O-line this draft. I'm saying even first 3 rounds. I'm not even kidding. With the way the Panthers are built right now, I mean, you got a good young defense. I think, like you said, with the receiving core,
yeah.
But you can go, I feel like you can go different directions with that. Like you can go trade, you can go, I'm going to spend some money on receiver. I think you really got to make sure he has time. Because with Bryce, if he has another year getting killed like this, not only is the confidence going down, the health's going down.
There's going to be an injury.
Yeah, then he's not in that Tua territory. You got to at least keep him healthy. So big changes needed, but give that man a wall. If you give him time, you can see this more consistently than not.
Yeah, he played decently well. I mean, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns. It took Justin Fields how long to get 300 yards? And like this is why, like, I'm not going to go into it too much, but this is why, like, Fields and other quarterbacks, like, I don't care. Like, look at what Bryce Young played with, and he did that in his first year. Like, I don't know. I really liked the way Bryce was playing. It seemed like he finally had some bit of confidence in himself. But yeah, it was a scary game. It was a scary game. I was real scared.
No, I mean, this was. We have to talk about it. I mean, was this the Packers almost playing 40 chess not to have to see Caleb? I mean,
that's what I was thinking.
Pulled the plug last second. LaFleur's like, fuck that. I'm not maybe lose my job for this bullshit.
I was texting. I forget who I was texting, but I was like, the Packers are secretly planning their own demise with this W.
No, they knew. I'm telling you, they almost knew what they were doing. They almost knew what they were doing. I'll say, but jokes aside, Jordan Love past 6 weeks, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's like in Stafford territory with how hot he's been.
Yeah, he's been playing crazy. I mean, he's third in the league. He's tied third in the league for total touchdowns, passing touchdowns.
He's cooking. And then Aaron Jones, first 100+ yard rushing game this season. Obviously, Aaron Jones is getting into, I don't want to say washed territory. I feel so mean, but he's getting into the older territory.
I actually feel like, honestly, this season had to do more with like on and off injuries than actual age. I have a feeling that next year could be one of those years where he just goes off and it's like, do we write off Aaron Jones too early? He's under contract 1 more year.
No, that's the thing is I could see it too. No matter what, even if he has that redemption year, he's getting older regardless. So it's like, even if he doesn't, it's understandable why it's been what it's been this year. And not to, because I almost forgot, I just got to go back to them real quick. I should have said this earlier when we were talking about the Panthers, but back to the Panthers for 1 second. This was also the second game this year where the Panthers had 2 receivers that have 6 or more catches in the same game.
DJ Shark, 2 touchdowns, 98 yards, 6 receptions. I mean, that's your number 2. That's your number 2 to Adam Thielen. Like, this is what Bryce is dealing with.
Get Bryce some help.
Yeah.
Hashtag J Love becoming a beast.
Hashtag fuck David Tepper.
That's one that every Panthers fan can agree on.
I saw Bryce tweet that out. Chuba's a bright spot for them as well, though.
Yeah, no, they got jokes aside. I think the Panthers' biggest issue is the man who's out here running the show.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know how Bryce has got to come up with a scheme or something. Bryce, get to thinking. We got faith in you.
Okay, just to finish this game off, because it was a 33-30 win. Bryce Young didn't get the spike off. You don't understand like the amount of like nervousness I had in me. Like I was like, no, he didn't get it off. He didn't get it off. And because there had been missed extra points, so I wasn't confident the Packers kicker Anders Carlson was going to get the field goal. To finish off this game, despite playoff hopes heavily dwindling this way you wrote, the Packers have a 29% chance to make the playoffs. Do you think, because the Packers are one of those teams I can see winning a playoff game.
I could, but I think like I would lean no. And I think, and then to the second part of the note, more than anything, I think regardless of whether they make it or not this year, this is one of those teams that's in line to like boom out next year or bust out. They are definitely in a weird range where it's like, I feel like it's one or the other, where it's like they very well could be one of the best teams in the NFC, or like where Packers fans are going to hit there being like, wait a minute. We hit the drawing board and we give it and all these things we had faith in. And if these young guys are developing, there's gonna be a lot of questions being asked. But if those young guys do develop, like, man, the Packers are in an absolutely premier spot.
2 games back to back that just made no sense. We have Cleveland at Houston. Are Flacco and the Browns for real? Like, are they for real?
I'm asking my buddy this week who's a Browns fan, like, genuinely, you got to ask yourself, I'd be like, how far can Joe Flacco take this Browns team? Because the Browns defense is so elite that it's like, if Joe Flacco can give you 75% 4 weeks in a row.
They're playing with so many backups.
Can the Browns, can they make a miraculous run at the Bowl? I didn't say to win it.
Bro, I think they
could
can.
In this AFC? Like, you're telling me you can't see this defense going on a run like that and then Flacky just kind of flacking it up back there? I can.
He's just got such
I'm back to a gut feeling guy. Like, it's in my gut feeling I can see that.
Bro, if Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl with the Browns.
Oh, it took his trajectory from Hall of Great to actually to Hall of Fame, like in the snap of a finger.
Bro, Amari Cooper, 11 receptions, 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, broke the single game receiving record for the Browns. Like, I was sitting there seriously thinking, if Flacco wins them 2 playoff games, how do you go back to Deshaun Watson? How do you do that?
That's what I think every Browns fan would agree on, is that you're saying to yourself, like, man, the one time we committed to the fucking QB, like, everything else was set. Like, what is this shit? But, hey, you know what? It's the NFL and it's not built evenly. Back to original point. You guys still got a shot this year. Like, just look at it in terms of, like, if we can go win 4 in a row, and with this roster, I can see it. It sounds ridiculous.
Think about what they could have done, giving Joe Flacco $10 fucking million a year and just use the rest of the money to build the roster is already impeccable.
The narratives get so crazy with the Browns. But then again, I'd say like if Deshaun can just come back next year and really like show you what he was showing you midway through the year, then you'll feel fine.
Yeah.
But it was the volatility with Deshaun. If you just cut out the volatility, we're fine. Because he's shown you we can still have good games. It just wasn't consistent this year. But if we can see consistent Deshaun, then it won't be that bad. Because Deshaun does give you another element that Joe never will be able to give you. But like what Joe's doing right now, you're saying to yourself, if you're a Browns fan for sure, like, man, oh man. Even if, no matter what happens, there's a lot of questions that are going to have to be answered this offseason.
Well, their kicker was hurt too. So they're just going for 2 all the time with DTR, which I think is a great use of DTR and his skills.
Get DTR out. Keep getting DTR reps. Keep getting his confidence up.
Every team needs to have. What the Browns are doing with DTR is what every team should be doing with their backup quarterback.
Wait, you're telling me that if you give teams more guys to game plan against, it limits their time they can practice each thing in practice?
Dude, well, that's the thing is like this game was 36-22.
You're telling me they have limited practice time every week? Like,
I mean, like, first of all, the Texans were rotating quarterbacks. Case Keenum had 17 attempts. Mills had 32.
What the? What? But D'Amico, I'm for 9 out of 10 decisions you make.
This game was 36-22, but really, it was like 36-7 or like 10. It was garbage time.
The score was fake. Yeah, this is just like the Saints game. Score is fake in this game.
So, I mean, Browns, I feel like they could be for real. Their defense, Myles Garrett, 4 weeks in a row without a stack, but he's still creating a ridiculous amount of pressure.
And then, so if he can get that going again in the playoffs, this is that perfect time. We always talk about perfect time this time of the year. Perfect time to go on a little sack slump, but it's not even because he's going on a sack slump. It's because he's pretty consistently double teamed even triple teamed every single snap. So it's like, I get it.
JOK back-to-back weeks with a pick. Texans playoff hopes dwindling, 33.3% chance as of Monday night.
As we call that a 1-3.
1-3.
Mathematically.
CJ Stroud is really making his presence known of what he does for this team.
And it just, to me, that this really sucks that of all the times where CJ had to go on this 2-week concussion, like, and don't get me wrong, concussion is super serious, and I don't think not enough people take it as serious as it should be, like, especially fans. Like, rest him as long as he needs to be rested. Let me be clear. I'm not one of these jackasses like, why is it not? But also, it couldn't have happened at the worst time.
Right.
And if you're a Texas fan, this one stings because this was like, the trajectory 2 weeks ago was like foolproof for the playoffs, almost, with how things were looking. And now it's like, man, he really had to get the concussion at this time.
Yeah. I mean, the Texans have two very, I don't want to say very winnable games coming up, but they play the Titans and the Colts. So they should be able to win versus Titans. That'll be tough. But they also will have a tough matchup in the Colts if they want a chance to make the playoffs. Just kind of last note, Derek Stingley, 5 interceptions in the past 6 weeks.
I'm so glad because this is what we knew he should be. Like, this was him out of the draft. Took a while to get the footing back. Took a while, literally, off those injured legs to get, you know what I mean, to get everything going. Reality now, Derek Stingley's an elite corner, and he will keep turning more elite.
Let's go to Jacksonville at Tampa Bay. We're going down to Florida. Do you think Baker is the QB of the future for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
At least next year, like immediate future, he's definitely at least bridge guy. There's not a doubt about it. What he's doing down there this year, I won't use the word special, but it's very impressive. Like, to see Baker be able to continuously redeem himself, it's more than anything speaks to his work ethic. I mean, Baker's is a very respectable guy. Very respectable guy at this point. He always was, I feel like.
He's playing for like $4 million this year.
Right. And it's like, I think what we've seen, I have to give a quick shout out to the man, just the man's life over the past, 7-8 years. Like, I think the maturity and growth we've seen from Baker has been very admirable. I do have to give a shout out to that where it's due. You know, we saw a guy go run from the cops in college to and get arrested to turn into much more humble, much more team first. And you've seen that change year to year. It was kind of a slow transition into what he's become now. But I feel like he's become much more of a leader. And this year is showing it most. We thought the Bucs were bare bones, you know, and not that they didn't still have talent. They still have leftovers. I'll say they have like good Super Bowl leftovers.
Yeah.
But Super Bowl leftovers don't win you Super Bowls.
No.
But it's like when you're looking at what they have and what they're doing right now, I mean, there's no doubt about it. We're very impressed. And I think that they are overshooting what we thought they were able to do. And I think, again, back to the main thing, it's like you point to what's doing it. Baker's the main reason.
I mean, look at Mike Evans. Look what he's doing with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin now.
And look who Mike Evans was just playing with. And that's not that Tom's inevitably better at spreading it out just because that's Tom. And it was different with the Bruce Arians offense. But when you got Baker doing what Tom was doing with Mike, it's like you got to say to yourself, look, man, bottom line, Baker knows how to treat his number one. And his connection with him, looking like it could become a special connection if they keep this going.
And that's the thing is, like, I would much rather play the Seahawks in the playoffs than the Buccaneers because the Buccaneers are so much more volatile.
And the Bucs defense, you know, and that's the thing is where we said the Seahawks defense has been playing really good, but I don't know, strictly like personnel to personnel basis, the Bucs have guys that like they have guys that can really, really game wreck.
Yeah.
Whereas
Diaby.
the Seahawks, you kind of just. Yes, we got to give a shout out to Yaya. The numbers this year are nothing insane yet. I think he's one of those guys where he could be elite in the next couple years. Yaya's got that speed off the edge, that finesse. It's just a matter of keep getting that body in that, keep growing more into NFL shape. Yaya Diaby shouts out.
Antoine Winfield as well.
I think he's propelled almost above Jesse Bates now, where like they've both been having, and I haven't been giving him the love he needed. Like, I've been shouting Jesse out all year, and I haven't been giving Antoine any love. They've been neck and neck, but Antoine is just locking shit down. Like, you don't even throw Antoine's way this year. I
think until the last 2 weeks, everyone was kind of counting out the Bucs to be like this 500 team, and that's what there are. That's what the record shows, but they're getting hot at the right time where it's like, just like the Rams, I don't want to play them.
Not in the slightest.
A team that a lot of teams would probably love to play though is the Jaguars. Yeah,
so this is where it's time to, let's have our discussion. Because obviously our worst narrative all year was the Jaguars.
It wasn't bad until they fell apart.
Yeah, well, it was looking good. It was the best narrative ever for the first half of the season. What is wrong with? How about this? I got a good question. Why can't the Jaguars play more than half the season? Because last year it was the second half. This year it's the first half. They can't. What is that? What is that?
It's so hard because it's like there's just so inconsistent in like so many different areas that it's like you can't even pinpoint like a number one problem with the Jags.
That the Jaguars are like that meme where the kid is like, "What is that? What is that?" You're like, what is that?" Like,
Literally,
I literally don't know.
Trevor Lawrence has been abysmal.
That's the problem. So back to the what is that? What is Trevor? Like 1 week you look elite, 1 week you look like a backup. What is that? Like what? Like the whole team. I think the only person who's been somewhat consistent over the last 3 or 4 weeks has been Trayvon Walker. Finally showing I feel like he's showing you what you drafted him for, but then out of nowhere, the rest of the team's falling apart.
I mean, like, you are seriously at a chance of losing your division. Like, in a year where everyone thought that you guys could just literally play average and win.
They could have played below average. That's what they're not. They're playing far below average. Like, they're playing like one of the worst teams in the league. And that's where it makes no sense. Because you go, wait a minute, we got Dougie P, got T-Law, I got Calvin Ridley, I got ETN, I got a good O-line. I have plenty of young, good defenders that were firing on all cylinders coming into this year. What happened? Why has Tyson Campbell not made the jump? Darius Williams has made more of a jump than Tyson Campbell. That I always own my takes. Tyson Campbell's not made the jump that I thought he was going to make it all this year. He's definitely still a solid corner, but some of the guys you thought were really going to make the leaps, not making the leaps. It's just, and then the D-line, like Josh Allen, if Josh Allen doesn't have a perfect week, it feels like the Jags don't get enough pressure. And back to the thing, and Trayvon's getting better and better each week, but that's another thing. The Jaguars D-line as a whole, the unit just doesn't really create much fear. And so this is kind of like maybe just the all result of what you get. The offense is not producing. Pass rush is just non-existent. It's just,
this is a team that in the playoffs, I would just see them as a one and done. Like, they would, to me, be a waste of a playoff spot.
As of right now, they're in that same unmotivated territory as like the Saints. It's just unmotivated. Like it's like watching. I know, who do I say too that was fitting into the unmotivated territory? The Bills, on a lot of weeks.
Do you think this has anything to do with Doug Peterson?
That's where it gets weird.
Like, I don't know.
I was literally just thinking about this yesterday because I was like, when the Eagles let go of Dougie P, it was like, what the like, and it's still, even to an extent, it kind of, but then you see how it worked out with Sirianni. But it's like they did for a reason. All I'm going to say is like,
it was kind of weird when they let him go.
Are we seeing the reasons?
That's what I was
going
thinking.
on with the Jaguars. I don't like. We're going to have to pay attention because it's not just this year. It's going to tell the story. But let's say that they really can't recoup when this is another thing of the same next year. I can't defend you anymore, Dougie. Even though I'd love to. I always give Dougie P the love, but.
He's getting into fraudulent territory.
I can't give him love right now because right now he's been a shell of himself. And that Jaguars team's been a shell of themselves.
Probably one of the biggest games in terms of draft position. We have the Arizona Cardinals at the Chicago Bears. Did Justin Fields help or hurt his position as the Bears starter with this game?
I'll just tell you what I've been seeing myself. I won't even give my personal opinion. I say what I've been seeing from Bears fans is that apparently, according to a lot of Bears fans, he did. But me
helped. He helped.
And I'll say for me personally, and like you said, I'm gonna give you the floor on this one. It doesn't change what we already knew about Justin.
Yeah, I was listening to the Hogan Johns podcast with Adam Hogue, and Adam Johns obviously, but Adam Hogue said basically. Or Adam Johns, I believe. I don't know. One of them. One of the Adams.
One of them's getting a shout out.
Yeah, one of the Adams.
Actually,
anyway,
they both got a shout out.
He basically said is like, Poles has said he wants to see consistency from Justin Fields. Okay. And fans are like, we need to see him be more consistent. But he is consistent. He is consistent in what he's doing now. He's going to throw for anywhere from 150 to 220 yards. He's going to run from anywhere from 40 to 100 yards. And he's going to do that every game. He's that Washington game. Outlier. Every quarterback has outliers. He is consistent in who he is.
And that Commanders defense, we won't even talk about.
Yeah.
But you're spot on, and that's why. And like we've been saying, I know you agree completely. As someone who's on picked a side of this argument, the discourse is, like we'll say before we start recording, it's turned into like a moral victory discourse. Like, but what about winning?
Yeah.
What about winning a Super Bowl? Like, call me fucking crazy. That's the only thing you guys should be worried about. And Bears fans are worried about X, X, and X. Guys, it's about winning the Super Bowl. This shit doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the year in 2018. You guys had a great defense. It doesn't matter if you have another great defense and you don't win. All this shit, like the moral victories, I feel like Bears fans always try to but this, guys, you're trying to win the Super Bowl. If you don't believe Justin's going to be able to take you to the Super Bowl in the next 4 or 5 years, there's no point in any this discussion going any further. And I know there are plenty of Bears fans who would say to me, well, I do believe that. Me personally, again, like to the point of especially with how things are built now, I think you have a much better shot around the rookie contract and the new coaching staff.
I agree. And my thing is like a lot of people, like when we got Nagy, was the argument, it's a passing league. We have to win now. But suddenly when we have Justin Fields, that the legs are enough and his passing doesn't need to be like, my thing is, I believe that you can win with a quarterback like a Lamar. The difference with Lamar is Lamar, you can tell, goes through his reads and only really scrambles when he needs to. Like Fields will have an open guy that he doesn't see as open and will run. And like, don't get me wrong, Fields is a starting quarterback in the NFL. I think he is definitely one of the best 32, probably 20.
No, I would
but
for
if
sure
you
say that
look
too.
at all his stats, passing, he's in the 20s. He's just not better than that right now.
And back to the point about Lamar thing, because that's the thing. Bears fans want to put a gun to you and have you say that he's Lamar. But here's the reality. Here's the reality, gang. With like we said, when Lamar is scrambling, and this is what I witnessed, especially on tape. It's a very calculated, like, hold on a minute. Like you said, I have to break the pocket. But not only that, I'm going to be looking for a way that once I break this pocket, that safety, he's going to follow me. And then when that safety follows me, I got a window because I got a quick release. I'm not like Justin where I hitch and I get it out real quick. And then before you know it, he opened up a 40-yard gain. With Justin, it's like when Justin's going to scramble, he's going to scramble. Not anything wrong with that. But Justin, it's very rare is he going to reset and he's going to fire it into a tight window that he opened up because they just don't play the same. Lamar runs to open up tight windows. And if the tight window doesn't open up, he's running for 20 or 30. Justin is going to consistently try to run for 20 or 30. But if you don't add in that other element, I don't believe it's the game-breaking element that you need.
I don't think so. I think this game I think the more games Justin plays like this, even if they win, only hurts his position. Because it's like, going up against like a good team. Like, let's be serious. This is the second worst team in football record-wise. They are. Like, they are the number 2 pick in the draft right now. Like, we should not be celebrating over an 8-point victory that we let them back into. Like, we scored 6 points in the second half. That's 2 field goals. Enough of the Bears. Enough of the Justin talk. Cole Kmet, you wrote down, living up to his contract extension. He's going to have a new guy throwing him the ball next year. First 100-yard game of his career.
Which is crazy, because I was doing the game logs, and I was like, there's no way. Cole hasn't hit this at least once. I thought for sure he got it at least once.
I could have swore he did too, but maybe I'm wrong.
But I was going through, and he got close plenty of times. But it was like never, at least as long as Pro Football Reference is correct, he was only up to 80-some, 85, 86, was like the closest.
Going over to the Cardinals, I wasn't very impressed with anything.
Yeah, they're slipping very quickly into like, it's like, I thought, I don't think you'll agree with this much. It's like, very much like
what also felt like they weren't trying to win.
Wait, repeat that one more time.
Like, I didn't feel like they were trying to lose, but I also didn't get the sense that they were trying to win.
Like, what's the thing? Like I said before, I really will have no evaluation of this team until I see them with a full year of Kyler healthy, because this year it really has just been what this year's been. I'll admit I was more impressed with Gannon, I feel like, earlier on than now, because now you're starting to see the defense's numbers across the whole season. You're like, like, if you're that guy, you should be able to get those numbers. I think a lot of these should be above like 20th, and you're like below 28th in a lot of them. So it's like, and again, I know you're working with nothing, but if you're that guy, like we can use D'Amico for example with what he's doing with that offense, even though he's not supposed to be the offensive guy. You get what I'm saying? You bring the right guys in the culture, right coordinators, even though it's not. You get my point.
Right.
No matter who it is coming in to making the adjustment, the guys that'll make the adjustment. Whereas with Gannon, I feel like the scales are tipping. We're like, maybe if next year doesn't go well either, I mean, the Cardinals are already looking at a whole fresh situation. And it's the Cardinals are also kind of in like, I don't want to say Bleakville because you have Kyler, but it's like
That's why
it's
I think you
only-
have to trade down from the number 2 pick to make your team any bit competitive.
yeah, you got to give this thing. You got to give Kyler more because you already have the guy, but we need more than just McBride. And that was my main thing. It's like, I think the reality you could agree on, everybody Cardinals fans would say is like the bottom line is they need more weapons. Like Kyler is weaponless minus McBride.
He really is. I mean, Marquise Brown is not coming back. I don't see them extending him at all.
I think that was one of the worst trades in the Cardinals history, probably.
Jalen Thompson had a pick.
Jalen Thompson, 3 interceptions over the past 5 weeks. Talk about a bright spot in that Gannon defense.
This game is just kind of gross.
But yeah,
minus
that this was gross.
All right, so let's get away from that then, because I don't think many people want to listen to that.
That game just was stinky.
So let's move to Dallas at Miami. Does this game, here's my thing. I think this game really didn't tell us much about these two teams other than that they are actually contenders. So my thing is like, my question to you is, do you think we learned anything from this game?
No, and I think that was the best thing about this game though. And that's if you were either of these teams, I think that's how you wanted it to be. Because it was already really, really good for you going into it. Where I think all you wanted to learn was that there was nothing to learn. That you were a good team, you were an elite team, and that you can compete with another elite team. No matter who won or lost this, again, if you face each other in the Super Bowl, that's not likely, but this could be a Super matchup.
Right.
You face each other again in the Super Bowl, it didn't matter worth a damn who won this game, right?
No.
You got to show up again and do it again. So it's like what you learned is just these two teams can compete. And that's all you wanted to know. If you're a Cowboys fan, you're disappointed and you lost seeding. But realistically, at this point, I don't think the Cowboys were like actually going to take the 1 seed. So it's like, I'm not one for moral victories at all. But if you're ever going to claim one moral victory all season as an NFL fan, it would be this game is either a Fins fan or a Cowboys fan, because at least you know what you have. And it didn't like alter that reality in your head.
CeeDee Lamb stayed hot as usual. Dak played decent. The Cowboys, in my opinion, are giving me the most confidence I've ever had with them when it comes to getting late in the year.
Oh, no, especially with, and that's the next note I wanted to make. I think that knowing, everyone in the building knows too, and he knows, that if they don't make a deep playoff run this year with Mike, like this, we could literally be witnessing the last 3 or 4 games, 3 potentially, in the Mike McCarthy era in Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I heard that, but I don't want to buy it because it's like he's only been this is only his 2nd year.
But I feel like in this thing, I
second
agree.
or 3rd year.
But if you're Jerry Jones is getting to the point where he's like, how many more years I got in this bitch?
Yeah.
He's like, if you're Jerry, it's all about it's Jerry world above all at this point where it's like, man, I don't care if I leave him here for 6 years and he can do it, but I'm only here for I'm not trying to put a timeline in.
No,
Jerry.
I know what you're
Hopefully
saying.
Jerry's got a long time ahead. But you get what I'm saying. Like if you're in Jerry's head, he's saying to himself, man, I don't know how much longer I got ever. I want to see results now, especially when you first came in, you got your 3 Lombardis. You're like, wait a minute, man. Now I'm like 3 decades later and I ain't figured out again. Fuck that. I need to get it figured out now.
Well, let me ask you this: have you been impressed with the defense as you were earlier in the year?
No. And unfortunately, I think this has kind of been, I don't want to say like a Dan Quinn MO recently, but like it's kind of been maybe like a more like, it's no matter how you label, it's not good. With Dan Quinn defenses, a lot of the times I feel like they will like start very hot and then maybe like dwindle off.
Kind of cool off, yeah.
And that's obviously not the Seahawks tenure included. That was different with Legion of Boom. But ever since leaving there, I feel like that's kind of been what it's been, right? I mean, like they kind of slowly kind of wean off ever so slowly, like week to week towards the end of the year.
Hopefully they can get hot by the end of the year. I think that'll be really crucial into separating themselves from like a regular playoff team and a team that could potentially win it all.
Well, because that's the thing is, and there's no doubt Dan Quinn is that guy, and he'll make the defense work. It's just like Dan just got to get him regrouped. More than anything, get the boys regrouped, make them realize in reality, all we got to do is go win 3 or 4 in a row, and it's going to be 4 in a row, but we can go be world champions, and the Cowboys have a roster to do that.
They do. The Dolphins also have a roster to do it. Tyreek Hill looking like he's not about to hit 2,000 yards.
We won't be able to rejoice over the 2K.
Very
unless he goes to like
unfortunate.
300.
350.
in one of these next
360.
couple weeks. I mean, yeah.
Unfortunate. But yeah, the Dolphins come out on top. I mean, basically, I think they have secured I think they clinched a playoff spot.
They did.
And I want to say
McVape in the playoffs. McVape in the playoffs. Let's fucking go.
As long as they win one more game, they should clinch the AFC East. Jalen Waddle had a very slow game. Wait, you said one catch, correct?
This was the only game this year he was held to under 3 catches.
Okay. So basically, the Cowboys defense still did enough to keep the offense in it, which is, I guess you could say, either the Cowboys offense was having problems or the Dolphins defense is really coming into its own. Van Ginkel.
And I think this is the main thing we had to talk about with the Dolphins. Like, all I said all year, and you agree, like, what were they missing? They were missing those pass rushers. Like, and Van Ginkel's been playing all good all year. But with Bradley Chubb, it was kind of like the injuries. Now that they're playing off the edge together in a tangent, and if they both can stay out there this whole playoff run, if they can stay healthy, let me be clear. I'm not saying the Dolphins are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm just saying that there's nothing that could stop them if they can fire on all cylinders.
Dolphins-Ravens AFC Championship would be electric.
So electric. Please let it happen.
Well, neither of these teams are going to be playing in the AFC Championship or any championship besides like the Tank Bowl for one of them. We have New England at Denver. Should Broncos fans be excited for the future?
I think, like, yes. But it's like another thing I want to talk about where Broncos are also like in interesting territory. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the Broncos are in some amazing situation either. Like, realistically, I think this was supposed to be a year, as we said, like the Broncos were supposed to make the playoffs. And then, like, you started the year so poorly, and then you got like everyone all excited. They're like a roller coaster season. And then, oh, it's up. We know the Sean Payton. And then out of nowhere again, it was just like, wait, what the fuck? And then it's like you're going up, but then it's like, oh, wait, and then we're back. Oh, no. And so it's like they're still a talented roster, but I feel like, again, we're getting into territory of like, you're going to have to start paying guys soon, more talented guys. And namely in this case, Surtain. And you got positions you're going to have to start replacing, guys getting older on that defense. And then with Russ, go back to my thing of windows. I mean, Russ is only getting older. Like, I don't really, like, I'm not saying he's done anytime soon, and I know he redeemed himself this year, but he's only getting older. I feel like all I'm really trying to say is there are definitely more questions surrounding the Broncos than answers.
I think you should be excited because of what you were able to turn around midseason. I mean, they had dug themselves a pretty big hole at 1-5 to be almost, to be like 500 at this point, or one game under 500 is impressive. And with Sean Payton at the helm, I think you can at least have confidence that you built on what you had last year. But it's kind of frustrating because it's like, it felt like this was a team that could go into the playoffs and maybe beat round one just being a Sean Payton coach team. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Cortland Sutton, no catches. Maybe they just kind of hit their wall this year.
I think that's the best way to put it, though, is realistically, if you can start next season how you finished most of the second half of this, you'll be, like, to your point, they'll be just fine.
Yeah.
It's not even next year's not even the guy you have to worry. Next year's not the year you have to worry about paying guys and stuff. It'll be the year after that. But regardless, it's just, there are going to be some questions this offseason. Some who's in, who's out, and what's the next step? Because no matter what, I think all Broncos fans would agree, this is not the roster that's taking you to Lombardi land.
There's going to be a lot of questions for the Patriots, though, and especially what they're going to do at quarterback. Bailey Zappi, what the fuck? Like, half the time, like, it's just like, what the fuck? Like, the fact that he led that game-winning drive was crazy.
I think Bailey Zappi is a perfect example of a guy. He has, like, plenty of good intangible stuff. He's not the guy, but he can be the guy on a given day. You know what I mean?
A less good Taylor Heineke.
It's like a perfect, like that. It's like the perfect comp. Like, it's like he's not the guy, but he can be that guy on a certain day.
The thing about the Patriots, though, is like, I honestly feel like if they brought a rookie quarterback into this, it's going to be like Mac Jones all over again.
That's the thing too. Like Bill O'Brien, the whole, like, whatever the fuck happened this year, it needs to be scrapped. Back to the Belichick taking away the GM rights thing. my narrative. Like, hey man, you do everything else great, but the decisions are not yours to be made around that anymore. I'm giving myself an analytics team, shit like that. We're going the way that other teams have been doing it, because clearly it works. But Bill, I still need you calling the defense, and I still need you to be developing these guys, right? Like that's how I view it. And it's just if you're the Patriots, there's not really much to hang your hat on this year. Minus, see my two guys you really got to hang your hat on. Demario Douglas, 5th game this season, 5+ catches. It's not, that's not like some amazing stat, but for the Patriots,
it's better than whatever they have.
For the Patriots offense, and the fact he was undrafted, that's exciting. That's exciting. And then also, much more exciting, in my opinion, is Christian Barmore is turning elite. I mean, he's been wrecking games these past few weeks. And it's not just the numbers, but the numbers themselves too are insane. 4.5 sacks over the last 3 weeks. Christian Barmore is turning elite on the interior, and there's no two ways about it.
2nd round pick in 2021. Yeah, the Patriots are just in a very, very awkward spot. Let's go to Christmas. We have Las Vegas at Kansas City. Is Antonio Pierce the head coach of the future for the Raiders? I feel like he has to be.
Like I said, if they fumble this one, because I even said with Bisaccia, obviously you can say how the fuck that was going to go now. We can argue. I could argue with someone forever about how it would have gone now. But at the time, it felt right? And they dropped that bag. And so we saw what happened next. Man, oh man, did we see what happened with the Josh McDaniels experiment. So all I'm going to say is, if Mark Davis has not learned from his previous mistakes and he wants to go be hard-headed again, he deserves everything he has coming.
I honestly feel like this is one of those things where it's like it happened last time. Even if I'm wrong this time, I can't not attempt it.
Seeing how the fan base and the team is responding to him, if you tell him to leave the building, I truly believe you're clueless. Because again, not even that he might not be the guy long term, but he is definitely at least the guy right now. And I have no doubt about that. I really, and it's more anything like, and that sounds a little contradictory, but I think to your point, like what I'm really trying to say is I'm not certain he's that guy for sure, but you cannot swing and miss if he is. Like, you have got to at least give him a shot.
No. And also I think it's like the players are playing so hard where it's like, okay, do we bring Josh Jacobs back next year? We can bring Jaden Daniels into a type of offense and environment like this and not have to worry about it. The only reason I say Jaden Daniels, they're in QB3 range, and he mentioned Antonio Pierce in one of his speeches. So I think the Raiders get a quarterback, keep Antonio Pierce, and really stack up on the O-line.
And I was going to say, Aiden O'Connell as a backup, that is a great situation to be in, because that was my other note, is it's like AOC has showed who he is, right? Like, and could he develop into something more? For sure. I'm not trying to like limit him, but as of right now, he's not a starter in the league.
No.
He is a very good backup. As of right now. It's just his first year. He can develop into more. But right now, that's just where it stands. You got to get yourself a starter if you're the Raiders.
Jack Jones, pick 6, back-to-back weeks.
And was this the first corner that the Patriots have released in fucking forever, where it actually ends up being the opposite? The Patriots are the one releasing the good corner?
He just had so many like off-field issues, and like Antonio Pierce taught him in high school, or coached him in high school.
See, I did not know this.
Yeah, coached him in high school, and then I believe in college too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's a great little tidbit then.
I think that is what the reason he's snapping. Max Crosby, no sacks either.
And we got to talk. This is what I want to say though about that, because I couldn't skip over this one just because it's so random. See, Malcolm Kuntz past 2 weeks, 5 sacks over the past 2 weeks. So even though Max is out here getting doubled every snap, Max has turned so elite that it's opening up opportunities for everyone else. And if you're the Raiders, that is the best sight to see, because it wasn't like that for the longest time. Kind of was like Max is the only guy that can eat, but he's not eating enough to where he's going to get doubled every snap, and it just doesn't work. But now Max is so dominant, you can't sleep on him for even a snap, and it's just opening up everything for everyone else.
You'd hope Tyree Wilson would take a little bit more of a step, but as long as the defense is progressing, I guess that's all you can ask for.
Absolutely.
A team that seems like they're regressing is the Chiefs, though. In all the years, I've never seen like Kelsey and Mahomes frustrated like this.
No, that's where the number one question needs to be asked. It's like literally, what is wrong with this team?
Matt Nagy's calling the plays,
but that, like I said, that's what makes no sense, because then you go back to he was still calling them last year, so it's like Nagy already won a Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator.
Wasn't Bieniemy calling it?
Wait, no, but Nagy was in the building. That's right.
Nagy was the quarterback coach. And once Bieniemy left to Washington.
See, that's why, for whatever reason, in my head, I've been mistaken that Nagy was the one calling him last year.
I believe it was Bieniemy.
No, but whole time. Oh, man. See, you can't even make this. You can't make this stuff up. You really can't make this up.
I don't know, but that's the thing is like
because I can't believe I'm stupid for not realizing this. I should have recognized that brain cramp earlier in the timeline here.
I don't think anyone really knows who's actually calling the plays for the Chiefs, but that would be the biggest change, in my opinion, to the offense.
I feel like no matter what, though, Andy's greenlighting everything.
Oh,
so it's
yeah.
like, no matter what, I'm never going to put it just on Nagy. It's just because that would just be like, I'm sure it's a big thing of it, but I think no matter what, I still think Andy's pulling more of the rope, where he's calling more shots. So it's like, it's just, I think, so let's get into the stats. It's like, what's wrong? I don't know. But how about this? Patrick Mahomes only 4 games this year, over 300 yards. And if any other QB, that would not be an issue. But this is Mahomes. That's not normal for him.
That's how you know it's the coaching.
Right.
And receivers.
And then this, to tangent with it, 7 games under 250 passing yards this year. Now, that's a huge issue if you're Mahomes.
That's brutal.
Makes no sense. And not that, again, the receiving core and everything's bare bones, but
no, it's bad. I think this offseason is the one where they're really going to invest in receiver. Yeah, man, the Chiefs defense is still playing really, really good, but it's like very little run game.
I think that might be the biggest thing on offense recently, though, too, is these past few years, the Chiefs, they married that run game to the pass game so effectively. And now you don't even have to try to stop the run. And then it's like, we can just sell out on Mahomes.
I mean, losing to a division rival like this in a playoff run for seeding, just not a good look. I mean, the Raiders are making it known who they are, but I mean, also, I think what is happening in Mahomes now will paint a broader picture for the whole NFL. It's like even the best cannot get it done with good coaching and good weapons around them.
It is insane. Like this year's Chiefs, like they said, what's that meme where they say it has to be studied in a lab for years to come? Like,
yeah.
Like the 2023-2044 Chiefs, get this team in a lab. We need them studied.
Especially depending on what they do in the playoffs. Because like, what really can they do? I don't know. I don't know what this team is going to look like in the playoffs.
I'm never counting them out. I still could see them winning the Super Bowl because I know their makeup. But like we would agree on, it's never felt farther away than this year, by far.
Moving into the middle of the day on Christmas after you've already eaten once before dinner. I don't know. That was a horrible transition. What is this a game that the Eagles should be proud of?
Fuck no. And every Eagles fan would agree. I don't think I've heard a game over the last 5 years, I'll say. I think it's some before that, where the Eagles played so poorly in a game, got booed almost the whole game, but still pulled it out. Like, it speaks to how the fan base feels about them right now. We know those Philly fans. And I was saying to my family, though, side note, in my opinion, you should call me crazy on this, but this is the type of thing a fan base has to do to actually get results from a team. It might sound crazy, but like, if you have a lot of faith in a team and they're not showing up to what you know they can be, you got to let them know. Like, I watched a lot of teams, and they'll just, fan bases, they just let their team suck for decades. And it's like, well, no wonder shit's not changing. Like, you're the Eagles, you're not even play good for 1 week. They're going to let you know. And I know everyone has a lot of things to say about the Eagles fans. I've been included in that. I'm going to give them credit where it's due for as far as that, man, look, they're not going to sit here and tolerate mediocrity when they know what they could be getting out of their team. And I have to respect that.
They just went to the Super Bowl. They know what their team can be.
So when you're seeing this product on the field, it back to the makes no sense thing. The Chiefs and the Eagles shaking hands after being in the Super Bowl together last year, they decided to make no sense now.
I mean, I would take the Rams over the Eagles if they played week 1 in the playoffs right now.
No,
the way they're playing.
As of right now, I agree with you completely, which is why it makes no sense, especially the way that the Rams are running the ball.
Luckily, the Eagles can still lock up the division. They are playing the Cardinals and the Giants again for their last 2 games. So if they can use that kind of as momentum to propel themselves into getting hot, they might have a better chance at making another Super Bowl run. But right now, it is looking kind of rough.
I think that's the main thing is that if you're the Eagles and you're getting the game plan together, you're saying to yourself, look, Sirianni and the boys are like, man, we need to kick both these teams' ass the next 2 weeks because it's more of a mental thing. Like, you need to get your guys believe in that same belief they had earlier on in the year. Like, man, we're just going to run through anybody, because you can see the belief wavering in this team week to week truly at this point, where it's kind of like, I think it kind of almost started happening after that first loss and that players only meeting happened, where it seemed like it was only going to go up from there. In a weird way, though, it's like they don't have as much faith in each other as they did last year. There's like this quiet thing where I don't know who started it, but they don't feel as and everyone agrees.
Connected.
Eagles fans connect. They just don't look as connected. They don't feel as connected. And I know when everyone talks up behind the scenes, it's been, you guys don't know what we are as a team. We're more connected than ever.
There's something,
I'm just saying what I'm seeing. I'm just using my eyeballs, right? Like my eyes are lying, and if everyone else's eyes are lying, then forgive us. But as of right now, everyone would agree about the Eagles that's watching them.
Well, then you got Jalen Hurts. There's questions about him right now.
He looks injured some games. He looks he's laboring sometimes, snap to snap. And it definitely doesn't look like it did last year.
No. Keely Ringo, first career pick. Christmas present for him and his family.
Couldn't have come at a better time, seriously. Christmas and to end the losing streak, secure the dub. I mean, like that.
He really should have got the game ball.
Unless it was the Super Bowl, I was gonna say, I don't really think you could think of a better like that. The only guy who's the more time ready interception is anything in the playoffs. But minus playoffs, this has to be the best time. I mean,
Tommy DeVito must have got coal in his stocking, because maybe the end of Tommy Cutlets.
It says that was the notice. It's like everyone has got to love this story, but does this kind of feel like maybe Brian Dable's pulling the plug on this little,
just like the Josh Dobbs shit.
Like just a little bit, like Dable's like, all right, wait a minute, everything's on the line. I can't be banking on my undrafted guy. It's just.
So let's get to this question, because this game is what it is. Dable has not beaten the Cowboys or Eagles as Giants coach. Should he still be the head coach next year?
Obviously, with what Dable's already done in his tenure, and he showed us, like, it's hard to say that he shouldn't. But that the statistics speak for itself that he hasn't been able to beat the Cowboys or the Eagles. And I know that the Giants are not good at all. But I think you can see with a lot of other coaches, not even Antonio Pierce is the most recent example. You got to be able to show you can win those games against better teams in your division. Like, those are the ones you really have got to show you can win. The fact that he hasn't yet is very eye-catching. I would say, personally, I wouldn't be ready to tell him to F off yet after this year, just because he's already shown me what he can do with a bad team. I mean, it's like, I got to give him credit where it's due with that. But I'm all about, you know me, I'm all about actually like continuity and continued success. It's like, if you can just do it 1 year, but then these next two are a mess. That's 1 and 3.
What does it matter?
What does it matter? You're 1 and 3. You're batting. I guess if you were playing baseball, I'd be fine. But we're not playing baseball. And 1 out of 3 winning seasons is not going to be enough. I think it very much hinges on next year.
Okay. Moving into our final game of the night, we had a thriller a thriller for one team. The other team is probably pretty disappointed. We have Baltimore at San Francisco. Should the 49ers be concerned? Because when Brock Purdy has a bad game, he has like a really bad game.
Yeah, I think it's here's my thing. I don't even think the word worried would be like the word I'd use. I think I would be very, what's the word? Prepared. Like
Understand what it could be.
You're preparing for what could be, because you said, like, if it's a bad day, oh man, like it could be, it's over. Like, it's like this run. It's like that's the thing too, is then with the Niners, why you shouldn't worry, in my opinion. The Niners have also showed you they can go on a 4-game streak where it's just, they get fire on absolutely every single cylinder. And again, like this game, yes, the Ravens went in there and literally, I know you saw the Florio thing this week. They did that. It was the opposite of what Florio said. No, the Ravens went in there and kicked the shit out of the Niners. But again, come Super Bowl time, if this is a rematch, this game won't mean anything. It's just about what happens that day. And I don't think that this would happen again. Because this was one of those games where it's almost like, yes, Brock Purdy did play like shit, but this was kind of a momentum-based thing, I think, where it's like, okay, a couple tips don't go his way, a couple crazy plays happen, and then before you know it, you're in your own head. It usually just doesn't go that way. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to excuse it. Purdy played one of the worst games of any QB this whole year. But mainly what I'm trying to say is I don't think it's going to be like a trend. But to your point, if he has one of these in the playoffs, anything even similar to this, there's no doubt that it's over.
He's like a snowball kind of quarterback. It just snowballs.
And then you only got 1 more year, so you got to pay him. So
making it difficult.
If you're the Niners, as we've known, we've said, you've got to do it either this year or next year. And I will stand on that, because Niners fans, have been convinced that Brock is, like we say, he's the second coming of whatever. But I think, and yes, is he talented? And I still think he's a good, great quarterback, but he showed you where he is limited. You get him limited with the cap space and everything else. I think very quickly the Niners could start looking a lot worse than they are now.
Kittle and Ayuk both had 100 yards this game. But I think where the rate of the 49ers really came out short, obviously, is their defense.
Yeah, no, by far I'd say the more disappointing thing, because, it's just like, it's because, we could point out to all these things about the offense where there was a lot of redeeming things. Only 2 sacks on the day. Maybe the biggest thing you could point to with this defense, because not the Ravens, I think the Ravens O-line is obviously, they're more than an above average unit, but I would have thought they would have been able to get home on Lamar more than twice, honestly. And as crazy and obviously as elusive as Lamar is, this Niners line, you got to get home more than 2 times against the Ravens. It's the reality situation. It's how you have to beat this team. If you can't get home against Lamar, you're screwed.
Ravens defense, 4 sacks and 5 interceptions. 5 interceptions.
I think it tells you all you need to know about this defense. I mean, they are flying. And I think it makes them officially the Super Bowl favorite.
Kyle Hamilton, crazy.
You remember when I put out the video earlier in the year, my top 5 safeties, everyone said I was a fucking dumbass. I had him at number 2. Hey, man, I sometimes I got the crystal ball, man.
All right, let's go to the Ravens offense and wrap up the show. This game may have secured Lamar his second MVP.
I really do think it did, because this year especially, it's like there's really not an MVP. I think that's been, like, a lot of people would agree on the narrative. I really can't, because even this game, you're like, oh, Brock's definitely not it. But then if you look at every other game, like, Brock was definitely it before this one.
Yeah.
So it's like this year is really weird, but then it's like that's where Lamar just doesn't have one of those games. And Lamar's impact, I think, is just bigger than stats.
Lamar doesn't have flops.
Yeah, he doesn't have flops, and even when he does, it's not the same level.
No.
It's just that you're like, we know he could have given me way more.
Yeah. Something that I think was interesting, someone pointed out, is obviously, I don't think the Ravens would have ever let it get there, but Rich Eisen was saying basically 2 firsts for Lamar is kind of like a steal. Now that you think about it, because remember, it was that contract where it's the Ravens would have to match, or if they didn't want to match, you'd have to send them 2 first-round picks.
That is crazy.
Think about 2 firsts for Lamar. Not bad.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that almost every single team could reevaluate that whole period and be like, why the fuck didn't I take this guy?
I don't know why everybody was out immediately on him.
They gave Lamar fuel for what we're seeing now.
Yeah. Zay Flowers having a good year. Isaiah Likely's been stepping up right where they need him to be. Lost me fantasy playoffs this week, and I went up against him. It was him versus Wan'Dale Robinson. So
that's tough.
Yeah, tough. But Ravens looking like Super Bowl favorites.
That's insane, because I never thought I was going to say it this year. I thought that I would say that we've been saying they can compete for one, but the favorites, I didn't think I was going to be saying that this year.
Well,
but man, shouts to, I got it. One last thing too is I've been on Eric DeCosta's case these past few years. You know what? Eric DeCosta, you got me. You had a plan. And I see the plan. I see the vision.
He snapped.
Eric DeCosta, you had the crystal ball, and I sure shit did not on that one.
Well, that has been your Week 16 recap from You Don't Know Ball. Give us a like, subscribe if you want. You can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. Thank you guys for listening, Dobbs.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all as always. Thanks so much, whether it's morning, afternoon, night. We hope you all have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, night, whatever it is. And again, if you enjoyed, we'd love to see you guys again. Thanks so much for stopping by, and we hope to see you soon.